Hello and welcome to episode 169 of the Arena Regulars podcast. I'm Zach,
And I'm Jeff.
and we're your source for drunken Magic the Gathering arena content.
That's right. Just a couple of regular dudes drinking some irregular beers and talking about Magic the Gathering, in particular, the online client MTG Arena.
Oh, that's right. And we also have a huge tournament to talk about this week. It's Magic World Championship number 30.
About
So
as
we're
big
gonna,
as it gets.
yeah, as big as it's ever been. Um, we are going to dive into that just a little bit this week. But first, each week we bring a beer, we drink it, we rate it on a scale from bronze to mythic, just like the tiers in Arena. So, with that, Jeff, what is on tap?
All right, we have a limited release from Collective Arts. Collective Arts is an old favorite of the podcast. I'd say we
Hmm.
haven't really sampled from them in a little while
Yeah.
now. It's ever since I moved to the same city where the brewery is located. Like I don't drink it anymore, interestingly enough. But we have a limited release from them. It's called Deceptive Creatures,
Yeah.
and it is labeled as a Nectaron New England IPA. Nectaron is a hop. And
Hmm.
so this is a New England IPA, and you would think it's only uses Nectaron as the hops. But if you twist that can around a little, you're gonna see they use Nectaron, Nectaron Cryo, which Cryo is like a vacuum. It's like a supercharged version of the same hops. It's like, yeah, Cryo frozen, and
Hmm.
it's really potent. And Citra. So see what you did there, Collective Arts. Love it. Citra makes everything taste good. So um,
I mean,
just gotta
it,
sprinkle a little of that in there.
of course, if Citra makes everything taste good, why would you not put it in your beer? I mean, come on.
Yeah, so they're trying to showcase Nectaron, but just in case you don't like Nectaron, they put some Citra in there.
Uh,
Excited for it though. It's a big one though. It's 6.8%.
yeah. Not big for what we used to drink, as we're kind of talking about beers and
Yeah.
styles or whatever breweries we used to drink a lot, but definitely felt big tonight
Yeah,
after,
yeah.
as I told Jeff before, I had a cocktail tasting at my restaurant today. So I have had many drinks already. So we're just, you just keeping going, I guess. Um, anyway, Jeff, let's crack these open. Let's go. Let's just keep it rolling.
And I worked today, so I just had like the usual 12 beers.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, we have some magic news. So as we said before, the World Championship is this weekend. Very exciting stuff. Um, this is like the Pro Tour of all Pro Tours, essentially. Like all the best
Yeah.
players over the entire year are coming together. 115 players are invited, and so we get to see what they have in store for us. They have 6 rounds of draft, and the rest is standard, including a standard top eight. Um, Really cool. I always love when Worlds comes around. So we have some the fun stuff we're going to be doing later this episode, like with the Worlds, like a whole championship. We'll talk about that a
Mhm.
little bit later, but we might be going back to something we used to do in the past. So stay tuned for that. But we do have actually some really big official news. Jeff, a couple episodes ago, we had talked about a card, or I specifically had talked about a card that we said, hey, this is making big splashes in standard. I think it's worth a slot in your deck, and it might even get banned.
Yeah.
Um, well, look at this. It actually did. It got banned. That's
I'm
crazy.
actually a little surprised, but I think this is probably the right move. So what Zach's talking about is that Leyline of Resonance was banned in best of one standard only. I think it was also
Good tonight.
I think it was also suspended in Alchemy,
Yeah.
pending a rebalance.
Hmm.
So you can't use it until they fix it in Alchemy. Um, but yeah, best of one standard, it got banned. I think it's correct to ban it in best of one standard and not in best of three. I don't know a ton about best of one, but even I was hearing like that it was ruining the format.
Yeah. Turn
Um,
two kills are just not what you want. Like that's not
right.
the vibe.
Yeah. So think this makes sense. I'm glad they just went ahead and did it. And if you crafted these, you got them for free.
Yeah. So like this is exactly what we were talking about. Ley line of resonance, the red ley line that lets you like copy the spells that you target your creatures with.
Right.
Um, this card banned in best of one. If you don't play best of one, but you had all of these already, this is just four free wild cards. They give you
Yeah.
four rare wild cards for free. They go in your collection. You continue to play Leyline of Resonance and Best of Three if you'd like. It's a win-win. This is amazing. This is
Yeah.
exactly the ban announcement we were hoping for, and that's why we had told you craft this card. It's amazing.
Yeah. I got some free wild cards.
Oh, I got all four of them. That's amazing. So stoked on this. These are the times when I really love Arena and remember like, damn, fuck, the Arena's great. Like when you can lean right into the like most intense deck, and if it gets banned, you're kind of rooting for it too.
And there's something satisfying about buying into the ban because, like, in paper, it's the exact opposite. You never want to buy a card if it's about to
Yeah,
get banned because the value is going to plummet and then you can't sell it for anywhere near as much. But this is sort of like, ooh, do you think this is going to get banned out? I'm just going to craft it. Even
yeah,
though I know they give you like a crafting window after they ban it. So you could probably always actually
just
get
do it.
it. But
But sometimes you forget, sometimes you miss it. You never know.
yeah, for sure.
So very excited with that. Love to see it. We also have so with Magic 30 happening this weekend. It's Magic Con Vegas is officially the name of the event, but the championship. Sorry, did I say Magic Con 30? It's Magic the World Championship 30. Anyway, they will be announcing. That's not really the right word, but spoiling some new cards from the new set Foundations that will be coming out in November and just a few weeks away. For Arena, it should be coming out on the 12th, which is that Tuesday, but then the official release is the 15th. But the thing about Foundations is that this is a different set. We haven't actually have a set like this in Magic kind of ever, right? Like
Never, yeah.
this is like technically it really is like a core set. Like this is a reprint set, and there's some new cards to kind of like help bolster standard a little bit. That's kind of what core sets have always been in the past. Um, Reprint cards that were very iconic in Magic's history to keep the vibes alive, as well
Yeah.
as making sure the standard could be a healthy format. But they're going a little bit farther with it this time because Foundations is going to be legal and standard for 5 years. That has never been the case before. This is new.
Yeah. I'm super excited for this. I think we've talked about it a little bit in the past, but that's probably a long time ago. So we could talk about it again. But I love me a good core set. So
Mhm.
having them back at all is exciting. And then I think this 5-year standard thing is just a good idea for the
Mhm.
format and for paper players in particular. It's a way to bridge that gap in being able to design both for arena and for paper. We'll talk a little bit about some of the cards we've already seen later. Uh, I find it interesting. I was worried that given that it's in standard for 5 years, like they would be pulling back on
What would
try not
be
to release anything that would really do a whole lot kind of thing. But I
I
am hopeful based on the previews that that is not the approach they're taking. I think they're relying on their new sort of ban cycle system, if
mhm.
need be, to do any of the heavy lifting on, managing that risk.
Yeah. Jeff, do we just want to talk about Foundations kind of right now, and we'll get into worlds a little bit later, just because we're
Sure.
already on the topic. Like, so originally when Foundations came out, like this wasn't part of their like full on plan. They sat us down last year and kind of said, "Hey, these are all the sets that are coming out for the next few years." Honestly, I can't even remember the roadmap at this exact time as we've kind of are coming into Duskmore, and I don't exactly remember what's happening at the beginning of the next year. But Foundations was not on that roadmap. Pioneer Masters was for Arena, but this was not. So we haven't heard anything about Pioneer Masters on Arena. But anyway, Foundations just kind of seemed like just like a brand new thing that happened this summer. There was like, hey, guess what? There's a new set that's coming out in November, and hey, it's like a month after Duskmore, and it kind of like put me on like I wasn't super stoked on it just because it was like, oh man, just jamming another one in, like as we're kind of frustrated with it. But as we were just saying, like, and as we start to get closer to Foundations, like, I think that this is something that's been missing from core sets for a long time. Like, the fact that we haven't ever had a core set like right before the holidays is huge because most of the time they would jam them in the summer right before rotation, and they're just like, yeah, there's a thing. Everybody's outside playing games. They're like playing basketball or baseball or whatever's happening in the summertime. Let's just do a core set and nobody really cares and just kind of say, hey, the summer's a wash. We just wait until the fall for the big set. Um, but releasing it here as they go into the holidays is just like the perfect timing for new players to get excited. Like everyone's like younger siblings or cousins or like grandchildren or whoever can get excited about Magic because there's a new set that's very approachable where you can learn the mechanics and learn the basics of Magic around the holidays. And it's exciting as opposed to they used to do a bunch of like master sets right before Christmas, and it was like just the hardest thing to get kids into, or like it's not really helpful as an on ramp. And doing the
For
on
sure.
ramp in the summertime seems so bizarre to me when it's like, why don't you just do it right before the holidays when everybody's together? Like this just makes a lot of sense to me. I
Yeah, it was a classic example of like thinking of the wrong thing, right? They were
mhm,
kind of thinking about standard rotation and you know and their set
mhm.
cadence, and they're like, oh, we have a slot in the summer.
Yeah,
It's like
let's
the
just
reason you have a slot in the summer is that your numbers go way down in the summer because people are doing stuff outside and not playing Magic.
yeah.
So like it doesn't really make sense to put the set there.
Mhm,
And yeah, like even if it was just winter versus summer without even factoring holidays, right?
mhm.
But then yeah, like the holidays are the perfect time for a beginner on-ramp set because, you can get this for the kids, right?
Hmm.
Um,
It's a perfect holiday gift, Like you could just like you can buy these products. I'm like, I was literally like dying to find something like this when I was trying to get people into Magic, and
right.
like the fact that they finally actually just gave it to you, like here you go, finally,
About
after
time.
like 8 years. I'm like, geez, come on, this is a little bit late, but like very happy that we have it.
Yeah, I think the previous iteration of core sets, even though I loved them, I always love core sets. I think once upon a time, core sets were awesome because they were like everybody's favorite cards, just
Hmm.
reprinted again, back in a set. There was even stuff on their website where you would vote. It's like, oh, it could be Shivan Dragon or this card, and that would
Hmm.
get its way into like eighth edition or something if enough people voted for the right one. And like people were psyched about it. And then at some point, it kind of became the afterthought that they used to like dump random cards that they didn't know where it should go, or
Hmm.
random reprints for commander players getting that were getting mad at them, or like yeah, it just became kind of this hodgepodge of like if you don't know what to do with something, push it to the core set, and the core set comes out kind of at a weird time and is legal for not as long as the other sets
Hmm.
in standard. It was like a very, very strange thing.
This is actually kind of funny. I've been listening to Mark Rosewater's podcast Drive to Work recently,
Yeah.
which is fun to listen to. Mark Rosewater has a very like yelly attitude. If you've ever heard him speak,
Yes.
he just kind of screams. But he does have amazing things to say, and it's very insightful. And part of the thing he was talking about was just like core sets around the time of Ravnica and Lorwyn was basically though that was like a block system, so they had like a big set in the spring, or sorry, in the spring, big set in the fall, and then they would do like winter spring as the small sets, and then they needed another set in the summer essentially, and that's what core set had like held for many years, was just like every other year they'd do that. And then they started experimenting with doing core sets every other year, and so they would have like
Mhm.
Cold Snap came in. They did a Lorwyn block where they had a that was four sets, like a big, a small, a big, and a small, and there was like no core set that year. That's when they were dancing around like, how do we do core sets? Do we do them all the time? What they need to be? And I think ultimately core sets for enfranchised players tended to be less exciting. Like they didn't sell as well. There are a lot of reprints that people already have copies of cards. And so there's many Magic players, unlike me and you, who really love core sets and want to play, the 2-3 Magic that we always have talked about. And so they kind of like go away every once in a while. And I think it's to the detriment of Magic that the game gets increasingly more complicated, and core sets are really important to simplify things. And every once in a while, players who feel like they play at expert mode, as the packs used to say in the past, um, core sets are a really great way to bring you back to your roots and be like, you know what? Like, how are you going to get your 2-3s through your opponent's 2-3s? Or like, um, what card advantage you're going to be using, or like how are you going to just outwit your opponent with very simple cards, which I love to see. And going back to the basics is really important every once in a while, and I think everyone should do that. So Foundations coming back Foundations being introduced here is huge, especially some of these cards look like really exciting.
Yeah, totally. Like, agreed. Love core sets for all the same reasons. I feel like getting good at core set draft will make you just an overall much better drafter as
Hmm.
well. Because a lot of sets, if you're the type of person that finds that you do really well in certain sets and really poorly in others, there's some sort of imbalance in, yeah, I mean, everyone's like that to a degree,
Yeah.
right? But there's some sort of imbalance in the way you play, whether that's like a color preference or like certain mechanics just lend themselves well to you. But at the end of the day, if you have that core set limited like quality where you can just win with a bunch of creatures against your opponent's bunch of creatures, pump spells, removal spells, nothing
Hmm.
fancy, and you can win against your opponent doing the same thing, then you'll set yourself up to at least be like reasonable at every format,
Hmm.
right? And it's
Yeah.
just like limited, it's kind of like limited fundamentals.
Hmm.
And I find it super fun. And I think it's great to have something like this that's just going to be, I don't know how they're going to handle the draft format. Like if it just comes back every once in a while, I have to imagine it's not just always on for 5 years.
Oh, on
But
Arena? No, no.
yeah, like,
I don't see that
um,
happening, but
but I like the idea of a long-term draft format, which they never have really gotten to explore because
mhm.
a lot of the time when these old formats come back, you're just not interested in the cards anymore, unless maybe you play historic or something, right?
Totally.
Whereas like the cards could still be relevant to almost everyone,
Hmm.
a year after the draft debuted.
Yeah, well, because you want these cards for 5 years. Like,
Yeah.
we can quickly talk about some of the cards that are in this set. Like, we're getting a bunch of previews tomorrow. This episode is being recorded Thursday night, so the Pro Tour is happening tomorrow morning. Well, it's really afternoon, but I know a bunch of cards are getting spoiled this weekend. We're going to talk a lot about them next week. So they have probably been spoiled by the time you're actually listening to this episode. But we've purposely haven't talked about any cards from Foundations so that we could kind of talk about them right now and following that. Um, but like you had kind of alluded before, like um, they could have easily made a set that was like, here are cards that are technically standard legal for 5 years, but are they actually going to do anything?
Right.
I don't know. Like, does Savannah Lions really, is it going to impact standard? We have
It
Savannah
could.
Lions with like upside. Those are
Yes, but
already
are
cards.
those cats?
Yes, you're right. That
If cat kindred becomes a thing.
That's true. Which this set does push Cat Kindred quite a bit. But I mean, like we could just say the most exciting marquee card that is what standard needs right now is this card, and I'm so happy that this is coming into standard and being like, hey, can you do it? Can we just bring one card to bolster a whole color, you know? And that's like Llanowar Elves.
Mm.
Llanowar Elves. is such an iconic card in Magic, and this is exactly what I love about Foundations. And if you're kind of like off it or just like, man, I don't really care that much, like that's as far as a whole set, sure. But like think about all the other card games in existence that are like kind of mimicking Magic. I'm gonna say mimicking because Magic was the first one, but like we're talking about Yu-Gi-Oh, we're talking about Pokemon, we're talking about One Piece, we're talking about Flesh and Blood, Lorcana. Like all these card games are emulating something that we started like as a fun
Yeah,
part of it. But
me and you.
our game started, but we don't have like a bunch of marquee cards that like the average person knows. Like the average person who's ever heard of Magic the Gathering, do they know any cards? They know maybe Black Lotus, but like besides that, they really know nothing. Like they haven't like they if you ask the random person off the street, "Hey, what's a Pokemon card?" They could say Charizard, Like they'll say Pikachu. Obviously that was
Yeah,
a cartoon, but like they still know of those cards' worth. If you ask the
yeah,
random person, "Oh, what's a Yu-Gi-Oh card?" They can tell you Blue Eyes White Dragon or like Dark
yeah.
Magician. Those are very iconic. And Magic just doesn't like we haven't been pushing that thing to be like, "Hey, this is our marquee card." And I think Llanowar Elves is a really good one to push to be like, "Hey, it comes down on turn one, you see it immediately a lot of games. It just feels so iconic. Llanowar Elves and Lightning Bolt. We're not going to get Lightning Bolt in this set. I don't think
Oh
that's going to
man,
happen.
can you imagine?
That would be crazy if Lightning Bolt came to Foundations.
And
Like,
put it at Mythic Rare just to really set
oh
everybody off.
fuck, Mythic Rare Lightning Bolt for 5 years in Standard, and it's in Pioneer. I don't see that happening. But Llanowar Elves is the perfect sweet spot where it's like it's not Birds of Paradise, but it is exactly what Green wants to do. Green is kind of underpowered in Standard currently. It needs Llanowar Elves to give it a little boost. Last time we saw Llanowar Elves in Standard was Dominaria, the like regular one, and Mono Green Stompy was a huge deck. There was a bunch of other pieces to it, but like that was a real deck in that Standard format.
Yeah.
And I think that Llanowar Elves can at least give Green an like at least a little bit of a boost. Right now they're kind of trailing, but they're like clinging on to like black to like hopefully stay alive. But besides that, they're just like I don't want to say non-existent in Standard, but like pretty close. Like you don't really play Forest very often.
I mean, the most played deck at Worlds is green, but uh
But how green is it? How green
yeah.
is Gruul, right?
Technically, technically, it's green.
Yeah, it's mostly
Um,
red.
yeah, Lot of Worlds I think is a great choice for this. And like one thing I was going to bring up about this set, and one of the many reasons I think this is a great idea. Um, they've already sort of decided that there are certain cards that they think should always be in standard.
Hmm.
Think cards like Duress, cards like
Hmm.
Negate that show up every three-ish sets so that they're always in standard. Like that's a ridiculous way to keep a card constantly in standard to
It's true.
reprint it every like third or fourth set.
Yeah.
Maybe it helps fill the file for them, but I don't think they have trouble filling files. I think they would prefer to just put Duress here,
Hmm.
and I would be shocked if Duress is not here
Hmm.
because that just like lets them not print Duress anymore. Like it's here. You could use it in standard whenever you want. It's a card we've decided is a totally appropriate power level for a standard sideboard card. And I agree with them on that, by the way, and negate like perfect. And I love the shout out here that hey, we think Llanowar Elves is a perfect powered like main deck green card for standard, and we're sticking to that. We're putting it out there. It forces people to play like cheaper removal.
Hmm.
It forces people to interact with the board early. I don't have anything bad to say about Llanowar Elves. The only thing I would say here is if Elvish Mystic is also in the set, I'm gonna be pissed. That's
It is though.
yeah.
Elvish Mystic is right here. It's called Helpful Hunter.
You're thinking Elvish Visionary.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I just because when they did the whole like Pioneer now has both, I was just like, this is dumb. Like every
I'm
green deck
sorry.
is now
Right. Elvish Mystic
eight
is the
Llanowar Elves.
Llanowar Elves like a clone. Sorry.
Yeah.
I was like,
And I'm glad it's Llanowar Elves and not Elvish Mystic.
agreed.
Because Llanowar Elves has the history, exactly like you were saying. And
Yeah.
so, and I feel like when I joined Magic or when I was a kid and playing Magic, those iconic cards did exist. There
Hmm.
was the Shivan Dragons, there was the Llanowar Elves and stuff. And so
Hmm.
that's something we've lost. It's not necessarily something we never had. And so I do like pushing
Yeah,
for it again.
us personally, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, like this literally came up the other day. Like we were talking about a deck list, and we're like, yeah, just put Spell Pierce in it. And Spell
Yeah.
Pierce wasn't in standard, and it just felt like such a classic card that was like, well, it's always
Of course it is. What are you
available,
talking
right?
about? Yeah.
Like sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad in standard, but it's always there.
Yeah.
And that's not the case. So I'm really hoping that Spell Pierce does come with Foundations. I think it's a card that is has proven itself to be this is a really good card. Like you were talking about Duress, which is a perfect sideboard card. You know, like it does exactly what you need. It's a classic like newer player can look at a card like that and be like, well, what does this do? It doesn't even kill creatures. Kill. It doesn't get
Mhm.
rid of
Yeah.
creatures. And you're like, yeah, but there are certain decks that don't play creatures that would be really important to use this card for. And like it's a good learning curve of like, hey, this card's actually really important to have in some matchups, right? And the beginnings of like learning how to sideboard uh, is fun. It's actually funny, Jeff. I don't know. Have you heard of the manga, the Magic manga? Actually, I should pull it out. I just got my
Oh,
copies
you
last
have
night.
it.
I have it
Okay.
actually. Um, it's called "Destroy All Humans. They Can't Be Regenerated." Have you heard of this? Do you know this?
I no, but this is news to me. I've heard of Destroy All Humans, so
Okay. Well, so Destroy All Humans That Can't Be Regenerated is a Japanese manga about Magic the Gathering. Now, I can't remember the year it actually officially came out, but it's been out for a very long time actually. But it was always in Japanese. So like you couldn't actually read it as an English like reader, but
Mhm.
very recently, as of like I don't know, a week, 2 weeks ago, it was finally released in English officially. And you can get this manga and you can read it, and it's all in English. And it is set in 1998. And all of the cards in the manga are real cards in 1998. They're so excited for the new set that's coming out, which is Exodus. And they're like,
Oh
oh my
man.
God. And they're cracking packs trying to get their favorite cards. Like this one kid really wants Hatred. But it's like, it's all about like these two friends who are like learning, like they're trying to make their decks better and play Magic and like learning about sideboard decisions and how their colors can beat their friends' colors and all this stuff. Um, and it's really fun. And it's like, it just encapsulated the essence of Magic. And it feels exactly like this foundation set, which is like coming back to our roots and literally our foundations of like, this is what Magic is about of like yeah, white does these things well, black does these things well, and people slowly learning what that is. And the more we have these like really intense expert level sets, the more we kind of muddy the waters a little bit, and it gets a little bit more difficult for players to be able to perfectly parse what the whole color pie thing is about.
Yeah.
So I really think that these sets are important. If you haven't noticed from like the way I've been speaking, I'm more and more happy that this is coming back and that we will have it for such a long time. And it's the perfect way to stop them from having to like print a million sets, right? They did like M19, M20, M21, like those are
Yeah.
like they're pumping those out. They're like, hey, we're making foundations. We print it. It's you can have these cards for 5 years. We don't have to print more of it, or we can to demand. That way, we don't have to spend time making more core sets. You can just go back and get this one. A lot of the core sets are just reprints of the same cards anyway, so it doesn't matter. Like, just get this one. You're good to go. I think this is like the more I talk about it, the more I'm like, this is a home run slam dunk. Like, this is great.
Honestly, the more I talk about it too, the more it feels like this is like a core set. If people just took the time and sat down in a room and be like, how should we actually do a core set? Instead
Hmm.
of just like, well, we have a free thing, let's chuck a core set. Like,
Yeah.
but, whatever, core set, just figure it out. This feels like they actually were like, what would be the ideal way to deliver a core set product
Hmm.
if we were ignoring everything else, what would we want from it? And that's what it's hitting.
Yeah.
I love that Elvish Visionary is white. And that makes sense. Like, to your point about the color pie, they're by making it this way for 5 years, they're kind of and making it the foundation. They're locking in a little bit what
Hmm.
that color pie actually is. It's always going to be evolving. It's always going to be changing. But to me, like, you know, I grew up with Elvish Visionary being a green card, but seeing it as a white card, it's like, yeah, it's a white card. It's like a
Hmm.
weenie that, helps fuel further weenies and
Yeah, it makes
like
so much sense. Like the card we're talking about is called Helpful Hunter. It's one and a white for a 1/1 cat, and when it enters, you draw a card. But this is the type of thing we see in white constantly in draft over the last like what
yeah,
8 years or whatever. And the fact that it had been like stapled into green so heavily was like kind of bizarre because like this just, a little dorky 1/1 that helps you out is such a white card. This is like Spirited Companion, except for it's not an
totally.
enchantment,
Yeah.
right? So,
And it sort of made sense as an elf because elves were small and you needed a
mhm,
high volume of them and like so I understand how it happened. But in terms of like color pie things, green is big, big creatures
mhm,
and white is like the small, helpful creatures. And so
totally.
this just makes sense that this is a white card now. Speaking of white cards, I feel like we have to address the elephant in the room because there's a statement white card here that they are deciding is a part of standard for 5 years, which
Hmm.
is a big change from how this type of card has been dealt with in standard in the past.
Hmm.
Do you know what card I'm talking about?
I'm assuming you're talking about Day of Judgment?
Yeah. Yeah. So Day of Judgment is 2 white white for a sorcery. Destroy all creatures.
Just
That's it.
Wrath of God. I mean, you
Yeah,
can regenerate them, but
yeah. I assume they didn't go with Wrath of God for because regeneration's not really a thing anymore. And
yeah.
also I don't know if they would title something that anymore. Um
Oh, it sounds so cool though. But whatever.
it,
Yeah,
it
I
does,
understand.
yeah. That's the iconic card to me. And
Hmm.
so I was like, that should be the card in here because it's foundations, it's iconic,
I
etc.
I felt
But then
exactly
I
the
was
same
like,
way.
I think I understand why this one got put in instead. But yeah, like a big part of standard for a while has been what is the cheapest unconditional wrath that
Hmm.
exists? And that dictates whether control decks are good or bad, basically,
Hmm.
dictates what you can play. And so Wizards is kind of making a statement here saying the default now is officially you have a 4 mana unconditional wrath in white.
Hmm.
That that's what you get. And by unconditional, I mean like
It kills everything.
it kills things. It
Hmm.
doesn't exile. And so, probably in the current metagame, like Sunfall is still the better card, but you'll see this pop like sprinkled in, it's that 1 mana faster means a lot against the fast decks. So
It does. When your
this is
deck
this is
is,
pretty huge.
you know, when there are possible starts where you kill somebody on turn 2 or 3, being able to throw them off balance and then wipe the board on 4 instead of 5 is huge. So,
Yeah, I've won a lot of games against white-based control decks, usually Azorius,
mhm,
where all I'm trying to do is like thread the needle between temporary lockdown and
mhm,
Sunfall. And I'm trying
yeah,
to like exactly get in between those two cards. Now I can't.
mhm.
So thanks, Wizards.
It's true. It's true. I mean, like, I agree with your statement about like it's not Wrath of God because we just call these wraths. That's like one of those things. To be
Yeah.
fair, we don't call mana dorks like Llanowar elves, so it doesn't really matter that much. And Day of Judgment is so clean that it's probably worth it just to play this card, but or print this card. But
Yeah,
like
it would feel weird to have like a regeneration rider in an era
when
when
we
that doesn't
isn't,
really do anything.
yeah, it should say Wrath of God bury all creatures. That's what it should say.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It just goes old schools because it's not like this is supposed to be beginner friendly or anything.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
But also talking about beginner friendly cards like Hero's Downfall is just like a card we're gonna have now. Just like strictly better murder. kills creatures and planeswalkers. But um,
Yeah.
I mean, like that's
It's
not even good though. Like the
yeah.
fact that this card is being printed at uncommon is great, and it also kind of shows you like, hey, this is a classic card. You will always have access to Hero's Downfall, and you will learn that this card is like fine. Like it's like
Right.
meh. Like you might have to use it in certain matchups where there's a bunch of like planeswalkers because that might be important, but there will be better removal spells. There will always be better removal spells than this card. But the fact that it's always available, I just that's huge.
Yeah, did it not get printed at Uncommon before, or was that in one of those
Oh, it
fancy
did. No,
sets?
no, no, no. It got
Okay.
printed at uncommon in Crimson Vow, but
Yeah, right, right, right. But
just
yeah,
the
again, it's a statement that like
mhm,
murder is too bad. They're
mhm.
not super interested in murder anymore.
Yeah, it just I mean they print murder all the time, and
Yeah,
so
it
this
still
is
could be printed and limited, but I wouldn't even be that surprised if it's like you don't see a ton of murder moving forward.
mhm. Also because Hero's Downfall is a perfect name. You know, you can hit that there's
It
always a
is,
hero.
yeah. Man, I remember when this card was not only a rare, but
A
quite good in standard.
good
This was
rare.
like what
Yeah.
people played in
Mm.
standard.
Buddy, that was a long time ago.
Yes, it was. I'm showing my age there a little bit.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, that was just oof. Anyway, um, other big cards to talk about. We have not talked about one of my favorites, actually, Anthem of Champions, which is,
why am I not surprised this is one of your
of
favorites?
course, that's one of my favorites. This is Glorious Anthem, which is usually one white white for an enchantment. Creatures you control get +1/+1. However, this only costs green white. So it is green white. Um, Obviously, like harder to cast, but like Glorious Anthem has been in standard many times and has not done anything recently.
Yeah, 3 mana is
So
too much.
3 mana is too much for your uh like Anthem effect, and the fact that you can play a creature like a 2 drop and this on turn 4
Yeah.
much better than like 1 drop 2 drop Anthem is like
Yeah,
not nearly
I
as
was gonna
good.
say the old school curve is 1 drop, 2 drop, Anthem, hit like a truck.
Hmm.
That doesn't hit like a truck anymore because you're taking that turn off. Like even
Hmm.
you're saying, 2 drop, 2 drop on turn four. Like even just 1 drop, 2 drop, 1 drop this on turn
Hmm.
three is a
It's
huge difference.
it's true.
Uh,
Just that extra body.
and
Uh
I love that they kept Anthem in the name.
yes. Uh
That's
And once again, something that's very classic. This looks like it's from Theros. Obviously, it's an enchantment, has that border, but
honestly, that's kind of the only part I don't like about it. That it's like Theros themed. It's like, can I get some art that doesn't look like Theros? How are you gonna make like three different art pieces for this and they all look like they're from Theros?
what's wrong with Theros? You were just
It
talking about
sucks.
Hero's Downfall. That was from Theros.
Yeah, but the art doesn't remind me of that.
I mean, like this art, this new art is not Theros art. This is like Innistrad art. But like, I don't know. I like Theros. Get out of here. Fuck
Theros
you.
sucks.
Enchantments are cool, man. I like them. I do want to talk about one card that I'm not happy is in Foundations,
Okay.
and I would appreciate
I
them
thought that
to.
was gonna be Day of Judgment.
I mean, to be fair, I actually like the control matchup. Um,
Oh, okay.
I think
Okay.
that's it's an interesting back
It's
and
fun. I,
forth.
I like playing against control unless I am also playing control. Then
That's
it's like it can
miserable
be
as
fun,
fuck.
but it just takes so long.
It's annoying. But the aggro versus control matchup is really interesting because you know the cards, like you know what they're going to do on different turns, and you're trying to play around them. And so that is really interesting, and you do get to go balls to the wall. Well, the correct thing is to attack. So
Yeah.
I just have to figure out how much to commit to the board. All those things are really interesting to me. I know a lot of people don't like that, but I think it's really cool.
And
So,
like whether you can beat a Wrath anyways is a big part
mhm,
of that game
mhm.
plan, right? So it's like don't play around a Wrath if you're just gonna lose to the
Hmm.
Wrath anyways.
Anyway,
So you might as well take that like 20%er that they don't have it or whatever. It
yeah.
feels like a 0%er at the time
Well,
because they
also
always have it. But
also learning like, oh, they didn't have it on this turn, and so the decision tree of like, do I skip playing another, like committing to the board more because they might draw it, or do I just attack with what I have and they don't die, but then I can rebuild after the wrath? They might draw. Like all those things are really interesting, and I like that. So I don't have a problem with
Also,
Daedalus
sorry,
from.
sorry to get on tangent a little more,
Mhm,
but something I've seen a lot of is aggro players in game one playing around a Wrath too much because they're
mhm,
like, oh, I'm the aggro player at their control. I think there's an implicit, like, surely they kept a Wrath kind
mhm.
of thing. It's like they didn't know that you were aggro and they kept their hand.
Yeah.
That fact alone means they're substantially less likely to have the Wrath
Mhm.
than they are going to be in games two and three. So you
Yeah.
shouldn't play them the same way. It's still probably like, you're probably still a dog on them having it, but
Mhm.
it's like they didn't in games two and three, they know that they need it.
Mhm.
Right? So they
Yeah.
are going to be keeping hands that have it. In game one, they
They
don't
would
know
have
that.
there's like some lands and a couple of deduces, like that could
Yeah,
be their
that
hand.
happens all the time that I play against somebody who's just like deduce, deduce, concede. I'm
Yeah,
just like, yeah, because you didn't fucking know.
those are the best. I fucking love deduce because
Because I don't care
watching
about it at all.
yeah,
Yeah.
watching my opponent just like hold up 2 mana, deduce, draw two, draw a card, and then like do nothing. I'm like, this is the best. I love this.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm always like, well, I guess we're getting mana leaked here, but fuck it, like jam it.
Damn it.
Like pause, nothing to do. So I'm like, oh
Best.
yeah.
Oh yeah. It really it's so funny thinking like how much I love deduce because of that feeling. Like yeah, I thought we were gonna get mana leaked, but nope.
Yeah,
Um,
sorry, I said mana leak, but I guess I meant no more lies. But
yeah.
like,
We
y-
knew what you meant. We knew what you
yeah.
meant. We're talking about foundations. Mana leak should be in this set. That's
Oh
what we're
man,
talking
can you imagine? Now that it's
about.
just like it's worse than no more lies, I think
Hmm.
it's acceptable.
It definitely is
That might be a
acceptable.
bit obnoxious to be in standard for five
To
years.
have yeah, to have like you get 4 copies of Mana Leak and 4 copies of or
It's a
about
little
fucking No
much.
More Lies. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. The card I was actually talking about that I'm not excited to see in standard for a long time is Omniscience.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
just the thing. So control decks annoying, but whatever. Decks I really hate and grind my gears are just fucking ramp till you do a bunch of value shit. I like that's annoying, or combo decks where you're forced to let them put this card on the battlefield kind of thing. Like when Omniscience was good, it was like Eerie Ultimatum kind of stuff where it's like, hey, you gotta pick one of these cards. Like I'm seeing two of them right here. We have Omniscience, we have Liliana Dreadhorde
That's
General.
true.
So like I
Oh man,
don't
imagine Emergent Ultimatum is also in the set.
I
Like,
would just oh thanks for just building their deck for them, Watsy.
yeah,
Like Jesus. Like so that's annoying stuff. Like I don't love the just hey, obviously this is a 10 mana enchantment. If you don't know Omniscience, it's just a 7 blue 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 for enchantment. You just get to play cards for free. You may have noticed what we recently on Arena had Omniscience Draft for Duskmourn, which I will actually say the opposite. I think is a lot of fun, and I had a blast playing that draft format.
it's a different thing though. Totally different.
It's completely different, though we should get into that a little bit because I had a lot of fun. But as far as the card Omniscience goes, fuck this card. No, get it out of here. Like this does not need to be in standard for 5 years. We don't need to see people try to make it work for 5 years. Like I see the dream. I understand the idea. Like, oh, you always have something big to plop on the battlefield or whatever. It just feels like it just doesn't need to be here. Like I would rather the cool thing, the cool splashy ramp target be something from a new set and all the tools that get you there be the foundation, and we don't need splashy stuff in this.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't really know why this card is here. To me, it can only do harm. Like
Like I don't
any
even think it
deck
sells
that's
packs,
competitive
right?
in standard that plays Omniscience is
Hmm.
a deck that I don't really want to play against. So,
Hmm.
um, I'm with you. I mean, maybe it's just like going for that iconic kind of thing. and they're banking on it not having a huge impact on standard.
Maybe
It's probably true. Um,
it's not going to do anything. It doesn't. I don't think it sells packs. Like that card isn't very expensive. Like
yeah, I don't really know why it's here. It's just going to be annoying when I open it and draft, to be honest. I'm just like, oh, great.
exactly. Yeah, it's going to be like, oh great, pass this thing.
Yeah, I have no interest in ever playing this card in any format ever.
Yeah,
So
unless they
awesome.
just like reprint. Or they make a new Tinker but for enchantments, then like okay, but like that's never gonna happen, you know. So
Imagine.
imagine they're like, hey, it's Tinker, but for enchantments.
And they're both
And
in standard forever.
in standard forever and also in the draft format. Fuck
Yeah.
that. Oh God. Anyway, um, we have been discussing a lot about foundations. We will get into more of it next week. Is there anything you want to talk about before we get into worlds, actually?
Yes, there is the card that I am psyched to see in
Oh, right. Of
Foundations. You
course. Yeah.
mentioned
Sorry.
Anthem of Champions,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I feel like I should get mine.
Hmm.
Uh, I'm excited about a card, a new card, I believe,
Hmm.
called Vengeful Blood Witch. This is one in a black for a creature, vampire, warlock. It's a 1/1, and it says whenever this creature or another creature you control dies, target opponent loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life.
Hmm.
All right, so they've given us Zulaport Cutthroat um, forever. That's pretty awesome. It's not quite Zulaport Cutthroat because it
Hmm.
targets, so it's like more like semi-Blood Artist, but
Yeah.
this is this is a commitment to like, hey, sacrifice will always be somewhere around, and
Hmm.
like the kind of sacrifice that brings you back, like the good old-fashioned creature sacrifice drain you out kind of Blood Artist stuff, not the really fancy stuff they've been doing recently, where it's all about artifacts and just getting a whole ton
Hmm.
of artifact tokens and
Blood
stacking
tokens and
those.
all that stuff. Yeah.
Uh, which is cool, don't get me wrong, but this I feel like is a better commitment, a long-term commitment of creatures
Sacrifice decks.
dying. It's
Hmm.
cool. And that's like there's a way to take advantage of it. The one thing I don't love about this card is that obviously it's only half a Blood Artist. It doesn't trigger when your opponent's creatures die.
Hmm.
But then the flavor text feels like it's really rubbing that fact in because the flavor text seems to imply that you're using the opponent's blood against them.
You have to read the flavor text if you're going to talk about
Okay, so
it.
the flavor text is like a quotation that says, "You thought I was unarmed? Poor fool. Your veins are my arsenal."
Hmm.
And it's like that's like you're using the opponent's blood against them, but that's just not what this card does. And it almost explicitly avoids doing that. And so this is like a slap in the face.
It's true. It really is. Even the art has a picture of him, like his finger is like kind of taking the blood from. There's like blood. I don't know, spear
Yeah,
things like shooting it. Yeah,
daggers.
yeah, shooting at them. Um, so it's very. You're right. That is kind of a slap in the face that it's not a blood artist. Um, it's it's good though. I think this card's quite good. Um,
And the fact that Blood Artist triggers on your opponent's creatures like sometimes matters, but you've obviously built your deck around
mhm.
sacrificing creatures. So like this is more than half a Blood Artist. This is like most of the way to a Blood Artist.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, like the biggest thing with the Blood Artist is like if you both have a bunch of creatures and then like there's a wrath or
Yeah, it's like the
something.
whole Mayhem Devil
Exactly.
nonsense.
It's
I
just like,
actually almost prefer that they don't have it for
mhm.
the mirror matches. But
Yeah, yeah. Well, the mirror matches for sure. Holy shit.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, this card will be exciting, I think, in some ways. It just it's good to have it in the foundation set so that you can just wait to see what the other pieces are in other sets, and
Yeah.
always be like, oh, well, we always have Vengeful Blood Witch. Like, don't worry, that's we don't have
Right.
to
The
try
hope
to
is always there. Yeah.
we don't have to try to shove one into a set. And that's exactly what we were saying before. Like this could give them the opportunity to have some breathing room with the sets that they're making.
And
Um,
they've always like they print weird bad ones that are conditional on the set's mechanic all the time and stuff. And it's like, no, just
mhm.
give me Blood Artist, leave me alone.
Yeah.
Like,
And this is a great way to be like, hey, here you go. You have
yeah,
it for 5 years. Um, this triggers every time. There's no once per turn bullshit or anything. This is just regular Magic. And you're like,
Yes.
thank God.
Yeah. Love to see vengeful Blood Witch.
Hmm. So super stoked on this. There's some cool cat themes. There's some cool vampire themes. There's a bunch of tokens, all that stuff.
Planeswalker choices, I think, are quite good for
Mhm.
this set's purpose.
Very
Yeah.
classic.
Yeah.
So we'll get into more of that next week as we go into more of the cards. Um, but Jeff, I don't think we have time to talk about Omniscience Draft like I was kind of hoping in my mind that I forgot that I wanted to talk about.
I would
So
have very little to add to that, but
ulti
if you had a monologue for it, feel free.
just a quick anecdote is that this is a wonderful thing that Arena offers us. Now, if you play Paper Magic, you can only do the draft formats that you have or Chaos Draft, which is just kind of whatever packs you and your friends have. Arena gives us this fun opportunity where every once in a while you do get to do random things with draft formats. Now, there are some arena mini games that I don't love, which include like Momir is not necessarily my favorite.
I've never
Momir
liked Momir, yeah.
Momir is basically just like card advantage chaos random deck where you just discard your lands to hopefully get a good card on certain mana values. It's not really fun to me. I will play it every once in a while, but like it's just there's not a
I
bunch
think
going
it's
on.
just like solved too. Like it's just
Yeah,
too simple of a
yeah,
game that you could just figure out the optimal thing to do.
yeah, it's kind of like don't be the first one to make a card. Basically, you card advantage is huge, and you just cross your fingers hoping that you have that.
With
Oh,
Magic Online, where it originated, had
mm,
Phage the Untouchable, which was always funny with it. So,
hmm.
like
Oh, when,
sometimes you roll the dice and just lose.
you have Page the Hunter's game into play, and you just lose because you didn't play from your hand.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Um, but no, Omniscience Draft in Arena is lots of fun. I like the draft thing where like you have a conditional, there's like some sort of funky thing happening, but you know it when you go into the draft. So you have to draft your deck around that thing. Um, Ikoria did it where it was like every card costs like three less or something. Or it was, I think it was three less, or just I actually think that's what it was. Anyway, it kind of made it so there's a bunch of mana rocks that cost three, and so they were just free. And so then it
Right.
just you had all these like mocks
And
in.
Ikoria was like the big monsters
Hmm.
format.
So it basically gives you the opportunity to draft a deck that you play a bunch of expensive cards that you couldn't normally play. So in Omniscience Draft, every card you play from your hand is free, and then you get like a free Wooburg every turn to use for activated abilities. And ultimately, the whole draft format is just like you want any card that draws you extra cards. So you need all of the rooms that draw you two cards. There's like a common, the Drowned Diner is like the best common you could possibly get because it's like you draw three cards, discard a card kind of thing. Um, and you try to go in these cycles and you can kind of win on one turn. You do a bunch of combo-y stuff. But the whole thing with that, and I'm not saying that you have to play Omniscience Draft. I'm just saying it's another reason why Arena is great, and that's mainly what I wanted to say. Is that like this is a cool game we get to play, and in no other place do we have the opportunity to play this type of little mini game where you get to draft just randomly for fun. Like you're never going to convince eight people of your like to get together and like draft Omniscience Draft in paper. Like that just doesn't really happen. And
Yeah.
so being able to do it on this platform is awesome, and it's just a lot of fun, and it makes you it reminds you, hey, each card is only as good as the format that it's in. So there are certain cards that are like great in the actual draft format, but then when you play Omniscience Draft, all of the things are completely different. Like one of the
Yeah.
main things is like there's a rare card. It's like Marina's Grimoire, and it's like
Never heard of it.
it's it's terrible in regular Duskborn draft, right? So it's this six mana enchantment. Let me find it for real. Yeah. Marina Vendrell's Grimoire. It's five and a blue for a legendary artifact. It says when it enters, you if you cast it, you draw five cards. And then you have no maximum hand size, and you don't lose the game for having zero or less life. It says Whenever you gain life, draw that many cards. And whenever you lose life, discard that many cards. If you have no cards in your hand, you lose the game.
Mm,
So in regular draft, this is a garbage card. Like, this is horrible. Like, you can't play a 6 mana, draw five,
do
weird,
nothing.
do
Yeah.
nothing, lose the game card. But in Omniscience draft, it's amazing. It's actually the best card you could possibly get just because it draws you a million cards and all your other cards draw you cards.
And you get to cast them all immediately.
Exactly. And so you just like win the game, basically. Um, so that gives a fun flavor to, hey, look at this unplayable rare in regular draft. What if we made it the best card you could possibly get? It's just, I love that kind of thing. And I
Yeah,
had
I
a lot
like
of
that.
fun.
I like that point about Arena because I've never I think I maybe did it once, but I've never played Omniscience Draft in Arena.
Mhm.
But I could. I would never play it in paper. Like
No.
if you're like, come to this shop, we have 7 people, we need an eighth, we're gonna do Omniscience Draft, it'd be like, no, I'll do a real draft, but I won't do I'm not gonna like go to a shop and leave my
Hmm.
house and spend the few hours it takes to do that. It's like you just don't want to experiment with these weird things because you don't know you're gonna like it, and
Hmm. It takes too
co
long.
like the
The
cost to
time
do so
cost
is much
is
higher.
huge.
So
Yeah.
like the opportunity cost of it is just
Hmm.
a lot higher. Whereas on Arena, it's like, ah, yeah, sure, I'll try it. Whatever. If I don't like it, I'll drop. Like, no big deal. Or like I'll play it through once and then not do it anymore. Like,
Exactly.
might take an hour.
Yeah. And
Um,
this one was so funny because it was ranked. I don't remember if
oh
this is
boy.
normally ranked, but I got to diamond playing Omniscience Draft. Like, it was like
I feel like
bizarre
this is not something you want this the like spikes
to jump into.
in,
But it
but
was like, it was a blast, and it ended up being really close some of the games because you're like, I have to mulligan. You could, oh, sorry. The other thing with Omniscience Draft is that you only have 3 cards in your opening hand. So
that makes a huge difference.
yeah.
That's a
So
pretty fundamental rule.
yeah. So obviously,
Sounds
your
like it's just
cards,
Hearthstone.
it kind of has that vibe, or Yu-Gi-Oh, I guess, because you don't have to pay for any of your cards. But anyway, it's like if you lose the coin flip and you're on the draw, it's like you better have a counterspell in your hand because like that's
Right.
super
Yeah.
important. Anyway, lots of fun. I highly recommend trying some of these little mini games. If you don't like them, that's fine.
But
But
when you said at one point, like it reminds you that a card is only as good as the format it's in,
mhm.
I thought you were gonna say it reminds you that a card is only as good as its mana cost. And I was like, yeah, those mana costs really matter,
It's
huh?
true. It's true. Yeah. I mean, that's also very true. Exactly what I was trying to say. Like, hey, a 6 minute planeswalker you can play for free is very good. You
Yeah, it
know?
almost doesn't matter which
Yeah.
one. Like it's good. A one drop gonna suck in this format.
Yeah. Just not nearly as
None of
good
them are
because
good.
unless that one drop draws you like 7 cards or something.
Yeah. In
Um,
which case it's good in every format ever.
yeah. But no, loved,
Yeah,
loved
Ancestral
it.
Recall would still be good in this format, but
Mhm.
that's maybe the only one mana card where that's true.
Anyway, that was a bit of a longer tangent about Omniscience Draft than I thought, but yeah,
We're
that's a
having
fun thing.
fun.
That's a fun thing about Arena that I liked to talk about. All right, let's get into Worlds. So, Jeff, do you want to talk about the history of Worlds with or just just give us a little rundown on what we used to do and what the Arena regulars used to be about, I guess.
Oh man, I thought you were putting me on the spot there. Like history of Magic Worlds. Like, man, I got nothing
No.
for you. It's it's the best players in the world. No, back in the early days, early to mid days of the podcast, we were pretty big on like getting people into these competitive events. Kind of try to be that bridge between casual players and competitive players. And one way that we love to do that was, try to make these events more fun. And, we both play fantasy sports. We know that fantasy can be a great way to start to care about things maybe a little on another level and
Hmm.
tune in and watch and like root for your favorite player. It's all very fun. So we basically would do fantasy Magic, Fantasy Pro Magic, where before like a league weekend or in particular worlds, we would pick our teams, we would see how many points they get, and we would be rooting for them all weekend. I always thought it was a lot of fun. I don't know if our viewers loved it, but we loved it.
Hmm.
And
We did.
we used to make quite the whole. We did a whole thing about it with we had various rules and like Snake drafted the thing and
It
did
was very complicated.
yeah, it
Um,
was, it was maybe a little much, but
maybe. And this was like literally the beginning. Like this is 2020 into 2021. Like this is the beginning of the podcast.
yeah,
And strangely enough, it didn't take off. I don't
yeah,
know.
well, weird.
Really bizarre. But every year I've wanted to do this. We didn't do it last year because I was getting married, and so my wedding, like I just got distracted. But
You would put your wedding over the Magic, over
I
Magic World Championship Fantasy.
I know it's so weird, right? Anyway,
Does Catherine know?
she probably not actually.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just wanted to say that like this is something we've wanted to do, and I think it's a lot of fun. And we found a really easy, much clearer way to do this. And I don't know why we didn't think about this before. But basically, we're looking at Worlds. Worlds is 115 players, and the whole game is guess the top eight. You know, pick the best eight players you can think of. If they all make the top eight, bam, you win the whole thing, basically. But you get 1 point for every match win that your player wins. You get nothing for draws, and whoever has the highest win percentage wins the whole thing. And guess the best team, basically.
Very simple. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, and if you're listening to this before Worlds is over, even if it's already started, what the hell? Go pick your team.
Hmm.
We have a link in our Discord channel that Zach put a little Google form that has all the players. You just select 8 of them. It's really simple and have some fun with us.
Exactly. This is really just a way to have a good time. And if you win, you do get to say that you have won. You can put it in
Yeah.
your like Twitter bio, all that stuff. But we want to go through the players that we had picked for this. I have seen Jeff's players, and I will say that my team is modest, to say the least.
Oh
But
boy.
anyway,
I was
uh,
wondering how much overlap we would have.
we have a little bit, but we probably could have. I was a little worried about overlapping too much, but Jeff, can you? I have Jeff's list in front of me. He actually doesn't have it in front of him,
Yeah.
but
So it's like a Google form, right? So I submitted it and then it
mhm.
said, thank you for your submission. And then I can't actually access my own list, but because Zach made the form, he has
I
access to it.
I have all the access.
So
Yeah.
we're doing a bit of a memory test right now. And I was kind
Mhm.
of expecting that we were going to do this at the start of the show, although I think it makes sense that we didn't. But I wasn't expecting to be the have had the beer before trying to remember all of the
Well,
8
that's kind of why I wanted
that
to
I
wait
picked.
to see if you had to figure out which ones you pick, because now the game is kind of can Jeff remember
Yeah,
his
can't you
team?
remember the 8 players he picked?
I think these all your players are pretty easy ones to
Oh
remember. I don't
yeah,
think you
I
can forget any
didn't.
of these
I
folks.
didn't take any wild bets here.
I took
Uh,
a lot of wild bets, so
yeah, that'll be fun. How are we revealing our team? Are we snaking the reveal, or are we just trying to put me on the spot and go 8 for 8?
I mean, like it seems more fun for you to be on the spot and then me to tell you when I picked the same player. You know, I how about
Okay.
you go first and then I'll tell you what my next player was basically.
Okay. So I know for a fact, and if this isn't the case, I would like to resubmit my form. But I know that I started with Jean-Emmanuel Deprat. Of
Hmm.
course, you're going to pick the reigning world champion
Of course.
on your team for the next world championship. So I picked JED.
JED. Yeah, that's absolutely right. I also picked JED, but that was the last player on my team.
I
But
see.
you know, I'll put him here at the top just to make you feel good. Just because obviously you can't.
So you're saying like he's the best player on my team, but the worst player on yours.
Yeah, of course,
Yeah.
because well, you know, the next player on my team, the first person I thought of when I was thinking about this was not JED. It was a different player. I guess we can snake this a little
Was it
bit.
my second choice?
It was your second choice.
Yeah, okay.
So the first player I thought of when I was thinking about making these teams was Simon Nielsen.
Yeah. Player of
Um,
the year. just been an unbelievable tear.
Okay, he's not the player of the year yet, but he is the, very high in
Reigning,
the rankings.
sorry, yes, leader,
Oh,
right?
sorry, you're right. He's the reigning player of the year and also closest to being like he's right there and being
Yeah,
um
it'd be crazy not to have him on your team.
yeah. There's another player that might be crazy to not have on your team, but Jeff, who's your next player that you can remember?
Okay, my third. Do I have to do these in order for sure? I
No,
think.
of
Okay, I
course
think
not.
pretty sure my third pick was Javier Dominguez.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He's just a great player. He always does well in these types of things. He's just like always at the top. He's just always hovering around the top.
Hmm.
And I was like, you know what? I want that consistency. This guy's just like he's just like top eights all the time,
It's
and it
true.
never seems to he never seems to like have a bad year, you know?
Yeah,
So I was like, you know what? Let's bring a rock solid guy like that into the team,
yeah.
lock him down early.
Okay, so I didn't actually pick Javier Dominguez. It's a
Interesting.
hard thing
Interesting.
when you're picking players for things because you're looking
Yeah.
back at past results, you're trying to figure out who's going to do well. Are the players that had good results this last year going to be ones that do well in this tournament? You don't really know. But I ended up going with Jason Yee.
Hey.
This player is phenomenal. Top aided twice in the last two pro tours. Like it is a really good player, and Jason just dominates. And I think that it is the, the person that needs to be shouted out. Like I was very impressed with it, and I think that Jason's gonna do well in this tournament. And so I hope that it does. But this is kind of a scary one. But it seems like Jason's on a tear, and this could be a tournament that it spikes. So excited for
I like
that.
that pick. I think that's like, I've watched Jason play a few times and been pretty
Hmm.
impressed, and this might be the time.
It really could be. So I was trying to pick some up and comers.
Yeah,
Um,
I like
so
that pick.
that's part of Jason. Another pick that I have that I'll help you out with is right next, like neck and neck with Simon Nielsen. I think it's really obvious that like Seth Manfield has to be a pick
Yeah.
uh, for any team. Like it seems like
It's similar to Javier. Like this guy's
mhm.
just always right at the top, maybe even more dominant than Javier. I also
Mhm.
picked Seth.
He's like
Uh,
right below Simon Nielsen in the like Player of the Year race, the Kai Budo Award. So it
right.
just seems so obvious that like I wanted players that have a fire in them. Like JED wants to like win it again. Simon Nielsen needs to secure the title. Like Jason wants to like punch its name into like the I don't know, the trophy or like be
Right.
on like win one. Seth Manfield wants to beat Simon, all that stuff. Those are the players I really wanted.
That makes
Um,
sense.
excited to see what they can do. Uh, yeah. What who else we got on your team?
Okay, so you've messed with my ordering because now
I
I put
did.
Seth
I
in.
did.
Um, but this one I'm not 100% sure was actually my next pick, but I picked Ely Cassis.
Hmm.
Ely is just another rock solid guy who's always coming up at the top. He's just been like, he's one of these players that just gets better and better and better all the time, and it doesn't seem to matter what heights he's reached, he still is always getting better. And he's
Hmm.
just such a down to earth, like genuine, lovely guy. If you ever watch interviews with him and stuff, so I always find it not hard not to put him on my team.
Hmm.
I was a little, this was probably the pick I was most unsure of, and I will get
Mm.
to why later. But for now, we'll just say Ely's a great player. Happy to have him on my team, um, and rooting for him.
Yeah, Ely 2 years ago was the runner-up, right? So,
Yeah,
no stranger to the finals of this tournament. Um, Another person who isn't a stranger to tournaments and winning lots of them is my next pick, Kai Buddha. I think Kai
You
is,
picked Kai.
I
Nice.
did. I ended up
Yeah.
picking Kai because this has been a really intense year for Kai. There's a lot of stuff that's
Yeah.
happened. Um, Obviously, everything that happened or kind of came out about Kai's like medical condition and everything that's happening. And I wanted to be on the side of like rooting for Kai, knowing that like, hey, this is the time, like this is a really great shot. You're qualified for this tournament. I think that Kai is dialed in, and I even if the numbers fall in the wrong place, like it doesn't really happen. I wanted to just put Kai on my team just to be like, hey, I can root for you wholeheartedly and really push for you because if you get to win this tournament, that would be the greatest story ever. Being like, they just named an award after you, and if you're gonna go out, you go out on top. And Kai is definitely the kind of person that can do that. So I just, I really wanted him on my team. So he also had a really great tear in one of the pro tours too. This isn't just like a player who used to be good years ago. Like Kai
No.
was like undefeated in, was it MH3 or OTJ? I can't remember which tournament it was, but he was like after the
I
first
think it was
day.
OTJ, but I
Mhm.
not not super com like not
Either
100% on
either
that.
he was undefeated or he was just like at the top, and then he had a string of bad losses in day two and ended up not making the top eight.
Yeah,
He
which
ended
can
up.
happen to anyone.
It's true. He didn't make the top eight, but then he ended up playing in a different like event on Sunday and then won that
And
event.
he won it. Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
remember
yeah,
that story.
yeah. Because Kai doesn't lose on Sundays, right? So
Yeah.
uh I just love it. I did so that anyway, that's my long kind of winded story
But
about
he
why
was
I took
also
Kai
playing
Buddha.
against people who are nowhere near his skill level, I'm sure,
Shut up, shut
the
up.
Sunday. That's not a knock against him. That's saying he's
It's
amazing.
true. Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's true.
Yeah, he like I almost picked him as well because I was like, as one of the greatest players of all time, he's gonna have a rock solid deck from the team he works with. Like, he's gonna have probably one of the
Hmm.
best decks in the room, and he has more motivation than anyone to spike this probably. So
Yeah.
I think that's a great pick. I just
Didn't
you
want
know,
to do it. I get it. I get
yeah.
it. I do know that he's been listening to limited resources and he's been talking to LSV and being telling him that they had made some mistakes and some of the... Oh, also this card does this.
Yep.
You forgot that this card also can do all these things too.
All of your
And
advice is terrible. Yeah.
so I love hearing from LSV about like what other players are playing. Um, I don't know if this is spoiler alert or not, but like LSV technically is part of the list. Though I like it's a little bit confusing because he has said multiple times he's not qualified for this tournament, but like on the official Wizards list, he's on the list. So I don't
Does
know.
he not know?
But he's not playing in it. He has
Oh,
some family stuff going on. He's not going to be there. His wife Gabby is actually giving birth to twins very soon. So congratulations
oh,
to
yeah.
LSV
Congrats
and
to them.
Gabby. So he will not. They were like on baby watch.
Yeah,
So he will not be going to Worlds. But
I
anyway,
think
that
that's fair.
it was a little bit of a trap. Leaving it up as like a possibility, but I see you have
Yeah,
not fallen
jeez.
in. You did not fall into that trap, so that's all right. Anyway, Jeff, what's another player that you have on your team?
Okay. Feel like I should reveal this to explain my trepidation around Ely Cassis. I also decided to pick a longtime favorite of mine, Reed Duke.
Hmm.
Um, Reed's a great player. Golgari's good in this format. I was like, why am I not going to pick Reed when Golgari is a real deck in the format? Like, I'd be
Hmm.
crazy not to. Um, and the reason that made me a little hesitant on Ely is because they often work together. They often play similar or the same decks, or at least are on the part of the same team. And I was trying to like spread out, you know, not anchor too much to one team because
Sure.
I didn't think necessarily this was a format that was just going to get solved or like
Hmm.
broken. Um, so this is kind of my all right. I'll head nod to both these players are so good. I like them both a lot. It's possible they both come with Reed's version of Golgari. And so there's a bit of a risk if that deck is not the right choice for the field that I could get hit. But sometimes Ely just goes his own way and does his own thing as well. So, um, yeah, that was my main concern with my whole list was there's a bit of overlap here in that these guys like to trust each other and play the same deck sometimes. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I just couldn't get over the like I love both these guys and really want them to succeed. And to me, that's kind of what fantasy is about. Like I want to root for the players that I want to win.
Exactly. Like that was what I was just talking about. Funny you brought up their team actually, because I'm pretty sure my next player is on that team.
Okay.
It's not one of those players though. So I picked Noah Ma.
Yeah.
So I have picked, and this is a player I've been
This brings me
watching.
back
Yeah, I used to
'cause
pick Noah Ma a lot when we were playing for
yeah.
the league weekends. He looks a lot different than he used to. He's like growing out his hair a little bit. He's looking really good. Noah Ma is like, see, looks
Oh,
sharp.
really?
Like he looks really
Interesting.
cool.
Okay, okay. Not that he didn't
But
look good before. I'm not
yeah, yeah.
surprised he
But like
looks
he's got
good.
a distinct style. You know, that guy is
Yeah.
looking sharp. And I just want to say that like he's working with, I'm pretty sure with Reed Duke, Ely Cassis, Jim Davis, all of them.
Yeah.
I've seen him in some like
I like Jim a
videos.
lot too, but I couldn't pick
Oh,
all three of
I
those.
I know I was thinking about Jim too, but spoiler alert, I did not pick Jim Davis. But I've been watching a lot. Like Jim has been doing a great job of like kind of showing their testing stuff. He'll do little quick videos trying to be like, "Hey, you should pick up this card now before it spikes because we're gonna break the tournament or whatever." Like fun
Nice.
stuff like that, you know.
Yeah, Jim makes great content.
I love his stuff. Yeah, Jim's
Yeah.
great. But this isn't about Jim. This is about Noah Ma. And Noah, he actually top aided one of the three pro tours this last year. I think it was MH3. He ended up getting in the top eight. And that was where I was like, oh my gosh. I was so excited when he was like popped into there.
Yeah.
And I think some of that momentum will help him like go over the edge, especially because I think his team is really strong as well, and I'm just excited to see him in the spotlight. This is just a player that I've been following for years since we kind of started this thing. So I once again,
I love that you picked Noah Ma
yeah,
because it brings me back to like I think he was in Rivals League, right?
hmm
And
hmm
it brings me back to the MPL like Rivals League weekends when you would pick Noah Ma.
hmm And so
Yeah.
it's another kind of like hopeful pick. I think I spent a lot of maybe too many picks on hopefuls, but
I went to exact opposite approach, like rock
mhm.
solid, all the old guys.
I know, and I was expecting you to do something like that, and I was kind of thinking like I can go the rock solid approach, but also I think I just want to. I mean, like I wanted a bit more of a mix, so I have a couple more fun ones for you as we get into it. But
Love to hear
anyway,
it.
what's your next? We have two more players as
Yeah.
we round out the
So
top
you
eight.
will see a decided change in my or a decided like semi theme in my last two picks when I was looking at
Hmm.
my list and realizing like the Japanese players have been freaking killing it lately, and I have
It's
picked
true.
no Japanese players.
Hmm.
So I went into panic mode a little bit, and I was like, oh, I got to pick a Japanese player. And I was like, well, let's pick a world champion. So I picked Yuta Takahashi
Hmm.
as my first hint hint Japanese player to round out my list.
Oh, you know what? As I look at my last two, I love them. I love my last two so much, but I should have been on your train of thought when I was making this list. Because strangely enough, I left a lot of Japanese players on the table and I was hoping I had picked one. I just like jumped over a bunch. So, um, yeah, Yuta's a good one. Yuta's obviously great. It
I think I'm kind of hoping Yuta's on Gruul.
mhm.
I think he can play that deck really well.
That could be interesting. We do know the metagame that Gruul is like, high up in the list. I
It's
think
number
it's
one, right?
number one.
Yeah.
Not by a ton. It's not like completely dominating the metagame, but it is
Yeah.
definitely number one.
I
Uh,
think I think Utah's probably on the number two deck, but I'm
mhm.
kind of hoping he brought the number one deck.
Yeah. Oh, if I had seen the list before, there's a couple of Japanese players that are really good to aggro decks that I should have picked. Um,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Like the aggro's good in this format. I know the
mhm.
Japanese, like the Japanese have really like carved a name, that Japanese team of just like crushing people with aggro decks.
Yeah,
So
it's
I was like,
true. There's a
I
couple
didn't pick them,
players
those
I didn't
players.
either, and they're some of my favorites.
Yeah.
I feel frustrated because now I know my pick, the deck that he's gonna play is not probably what I would want in this, but I do love this player. And again, it was just kind of me going through being like, I love this guy and I want to like root for
For
him.
sure.
So
Yeah.
Arne Huschenbet is
I knew when you were gonna pick Arna, and I was like, I almost don't want to pick Arna so
that's
that
what I was worried that you were gonna pick him. So I was like, oh, maybe we'll just
yeah.
have the same player. But yeah, Arne Huschenbet, one of my favorites. Um, won a pro tour years ago or before. I mean, they weren't called pro tours at that time, but he played rogues. He's just an awesome dude. Also fought his way back. He got into a top eight this year.
And just a fantastic player.
Oh my God, so
Yeah.
awesome. So Arna, I want to root for you, pal, and let's get that W. Arna could definitely be playing the best deck. I could see that for sure.
Yeah, I feel like I'd see him on one of the top two.
Yeah. But honestly, you just never know with these folks. So I'm excited for the deck list to come out. Obviously, by the time you're listening to this episode, you already know what everyone's deck is. But at this time, we don't know, so it's kind of exciting.
That's right. We know
Uh,
like the general metagame, we know the players we took and their preferences. So we
mhm.
have a guess. But
We
you
do have a
guys
guess.
know.
Mhm. All right, Jeff, what's your last pick for this
All
whole
right. So
shebang?
my last pick, I did want a wild card,
Hmm.
but I wanted a reliable wild card. And I was like, who's a reliable wild card? And
Oh.
one name sprang to mind,
Hmm.
and that's Shota Yasuoka. You never know what this guy is going to cook up and bring to a tournament with crazy amounts of money on the line. But you also never know he's going to spike that tournament with that weird deck as well. He's
Hmm.
also a master of like metagaming these smaller tournaments. I'd have even more confidence if there was like the old school 32 players here.
Yeah.
But you know, he could bring like Gruul prowess, or he could be one of the decks that there's a one of and only he
Hmm.
showed up with it.
Some
Like you don't
other
know.
random deck.
And he's just that good that he can basically pilot anything, and he likes to have fun, so he often just brings random stuff. And I just always want to root for this guy. So he also plays blazingly fast. If you ever
Hmm.
watch him, like, it's just like, how are you parsing this that quickly? Whatever deck he's playing, he just like draws a card and makes the decision instantaneously. And I'm like, okay, well,
Also in
did you even
his
read the card that you drew? Did
yeah.
you even look at it?
In his
Like,
suit. Apparently, it's like very scary to play against him too. He has
yeah, I mean,
very
when someone like,
intense gamer
yeah,
face.
just has that game phase and just playing so quickly is part of it too, right? Like your opponent just draws
Hmm.
a card and plays. It's just like, whoa, I'm not ready to play my card yet, Shota. Like,
Hmm.
right.
Is there
There's
any
always
countering? Does it
the
resolve?
always the meme of him playing against LSV where it's like nobody understands what happened in that game except those two because
Yeah,
like they both play so
so
quickly.
fast,
Yeah,
which I kind of love.
yeah.
Uh,
Because you have a lot of players that are the opposite.
it's true.
Maybe
Yeah,
stretch things a little bit.
yeah.
I just want to see like
Gabriel
Shota
Nassif.
against Gab Nassif.
Yeah,
Just like
just takes for. It's like yeah, all
and
Gab's
Shota's
turns
just sitting there like this for all of Gab's turn.
staring at him, and Gab's just like sitting there. Shota just brings a rope and just starts pulling it across the table.
Lights it on fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
That's
I love Shota. I was really this was my crazy pick in the sense that like
mhm.
I don't even know if he works with a team or if he just does his own thing. Like he just shows up with whatever he feels like playing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely not as crazy as my last pick. My last one was just, going with my theme of, hey, these are players I really want to watch. If you ever played fantasy
Yeah.
sports before, a lot of it can be just like, you know what, I want to root for this person, and I don't want to feel bad about rooting for this person, so I'm just gonna
Yeah.
pick him,
That's a
and
big
that's what
part of
it's
it.
gonna be. And I loved watching this player when they were on coverage for the last Pro Tour that they were on. So much so that I was like, I'm gonna start following you on everything, and you're hilarious. And so I decided that the last player on my team is gonna be Nicole Tipple.
Nice.
Um, Nicole was playing the four color Legends deck in Standard back in OTJ
Yeah.
and did a really good job of piloting it. Did very well. Missed the top eight by just like a
Oh,
few
that was a
matches. Like
heartbreaker
it was
that
a
when she
heartbreaker.
missed that
Nicole
top eight.
did such a good job. It was really exciting to watch her play. Um, uh, I think
Yeah, I
Jason
remember that
Jason
actually.
ended up getting.
She was just drawing and like just drew
Mhm.
bricks
Yeah,
turn
there's
after
a
turn
few.
after turn after
Yeah,
turn.
and like her opponent ended up top eight. It was like a win and in basically, and her
Yeah.
opponent got into the top eight instead. But she was on the same. I don't know if she was on the same team as Jason, but I'm pretty sure because I think they had the
They were
same
playing the
deck
same
list.
75, pretty
Yeah.
sure.
So I really liked what they had brought to that tournament. The innovation of that was really exciting. Obviously, it's a deck we had seen, but they had really Jason specifically had mastered that deck, but
Yeah.
Nicole picked it up very quickly as well and played it beautifully. And that's a really hard deck to play too. So
Yeah,
I'm really
that's not
interested to
easy.
see what kind of deck Nicole is either like playing or maybe it's some of these like I could see Nicole playing like Domain Ramp or maybe some of these other kind of like more finicky decks. There's other things there could be either like some of the prowess decks or maybe it could be something just completely bizarre. I have no idea because like
Honestly,
that.
my guess is they're that team,
Mhm.
but if I had to choose, I think they might be playing Oculus.
It does seem like the kind of deck that they would want. They love. I could see them really enjoying the Manifest Dread with the Oculus thing
And it seems like something where you can get an edge by just knowing the ins and outs really
really
well,
well. That's
and just
true.
like the kind of thing they thrived on with that previous deck list they brought.
Yeah. So anyway, Nicole, very excited to see what she does and what her team does. So I'm kind of putting a lot of eggs in that basket right there.
Yeah,
So
that's your stack, to use
yeah,
a fantasy term. My
basically
stack's the Golgari stack.
all timers. So we'll have to see. I mean, also picking Shota is smart because you're not going to get any draws with Shota, so that
Yeah,
is
that's right.
also a good idea. Um, but yeah, these are our list. We'll post them in our Discord, but we can run through them really quickly. So Jeff, do you want to just tell us who's all on your team?
Yes, Jean-Emmanuel Deplas, Simon Nielsen, Javier Dominguez, Seth Manfield, Ili Cassis, Reed Duke, Yuta Takahashi, and Shota Yasuoka.
Yeah, and then I have JED as well, Simon Nielsen, Jason Yee, Seth Manfield, Kai Buda, Noah Ma, Arna Hushembet, and Nicole Tipple. Um, yeah, this is our deck. And we don't actually have an official bet, Jeff. We're
Yeah,
just for glory.
just for
Maybe
glory.
maybe next year we'll get a little bit more intense about it. But if you would like to join into this, you have a bit of time. Throw in your teams. We're gonna post this. I mean, it's already posted. Go into our Discord and check it out. But you can make a team of your own
Yeah.
for the
Even
top
if
eight.
some games have already happened, whatever, it's just for fun.
That's true. It would be kind of interesting after Friday if you made your team. Could you still beat us? Who
Yeah.
knows? Because anything could happen in day two. You don't know. You don't know. Um, but yeah, Worlds is always really exciting. It's a great tournament, lots of fun, and we get to see who gets crowned, and then we're one step closer to another invitational card, or I guess Worlds card at this point. But yeah, Well, Jeff, this has been a fantastic episode. Do we have any last thoughts before we go to last call?
Yeah, I feel like we referenced it a couple of times, so we'll just quickly run through some of the top decks that are actually being
Oh,
picked because we do know the standard metagame.
that probably makes sense. Yeah.
But we referenced the top deck a few times. The most played deck is Gruul Prowess. This is essentially like mono red with a bit of green for protection, but it's like the
Hmm.
um like heroic is the best word I have to describe this deck. This thing is all over Arena. Wasn't super surprised to see this number one, but
Hmm.
what it does do is like confirm for me that the
Kill.
deck is just that good, where it's like sometimes on Arena it's like it's maybe it's more about like raw power and like speed than it is actually about is this the best deck against seasoned opponents? So
Hmm.
to see it here means like, yeah, even against the best in the world, this deck just has that flexibility. It has that power to win games,
Hmm.
which again, like I think I would have guessed, but this is confirmation of that.
Well, this is really nice because this is my favorite deck, and I was not thinking it was going to be number one. I thought it was
I don't
number
know if I would have guessed it was
two.
number one, but I would have guessed it was on here. Yeah.
I definitely knew it was going to be on here, but I thought it would be number two or three. And when we say number one, I'm talking about like there were 20 decks, and it's only
17.7, yeah,
is
percent.
17.7%. That is a really healthy number. Like,
Super healthy. That was my favorite number that I saw in this whole
mhm,
thing was immediately, I guess I just tend to look at the percentage of field of the top deck.
mhm.
17.7 is awesome.
Yeah,
And
like
then like the next two decks are not just the same thing, but in a like it's not like Rakdos Sacrifice then Jund Sacrifice are the top two, which we've seen in the past.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
no, it's a completely different deck. The second one at 14.2% is Dimir midrange,
Hmm.
which
We're
I thought was like this one.
dead.
I'm surprised. I thought this wasn't in the metagame anymore.
Yeah, like this is pretty exciting. There was like some there was a we had played some fun Demir decks that were posted in the Discord. I don't know if I specifically call them mid-range. I would think they were more tempo, but this is probably a flavor of that deck. It looks like they're playing Enduring Curiosity, so um, a Deep Cavern Bat Curiosity kind of thing seems like a lot of fun to me. I
Makes
really
sense.
I like that vibe. Stealing your opponent's cards and drawing cards sounds great. I'm really excited to see all these deck lists, though. Like, we don't have the actual list, we just have the names of them. So, as we get into some of the
Yeah.
more interesting ones, like, we just don't exactly know if we haven't seen it on Arena. Like, we don't know what this deck is.
Yeah, my criticism of Deep Cavern Bat has always been people play this like it's such an amazing card. It's only good if you care about that 1/1 flying lifelink body.
Hmm.
People play it like it's just like Thoughtseize, it goes in every black deck. It's like, no, you need to be able to use the 1/1 flying lifelink body effectively.
Hmm.
And the way historically to do that has been Gix. Like Gix
Hmm.
draws a card whenever it has a curiosity effect on it. And it's I my guess is this deck is really doubling down on that to make Deep Cavern Bat like a really exciting main deck card
Hmm.
rather than, you know, what really a kind of a sideboard card
Hmm.
that people play in the main deck for some reason. And so I think like the card is good, but it's not Thoughtseize where you just like should play it no matter what. And I think this deck is like, hey, how do we just from seeing these two cards, how do we like make Deep Cavern Bat its best? How do we
Hmm.
really make it like a really nice card to play? And the answer is that you got a second
Curiosity.
Gix.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you have Gix and Curiosity now.
Hmm.
And that really makes that 1/1 flyer really relevant. Like now Deep Cavern Bat's going to turn into like a 3 for 1 or whatever
Yeah.
instead of just a 1 for 1 when you don't care about the
Totally.
body.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I didn't even think about like Deep Cavern Bat without anything to care about the flyer is kind of like a soul partition where it's like I'm
Yeah,
gonna
Soul
t
Partitions. It's
it's
like a
like
shitty Thoughtseize because
yeah,
I
it's
can get
like
the card back whenever I want.
yeah, it's like I'll take your card away for a while, but you'll get it back sometime. Like
Yeah.
it's a weird card like that. Anyway, the next deck is 11.5% for Azorius Oculus, which we all know, the Helping Hand Abhorrent Oculus combo.
Yeah.
It just that whole thing reanimates all that stuff with Hadi Jin and all the cantrips and all the fun and all the blah blah blah. That deck is
Yeah.
so annoying, and I played again.
Not not surprised to see it here.
Yeah, I don't love it. I was playing with it the other day and I could not fucking get it to go. I was like, I want aggro again. Let's just play
Yeah.
aggro decks.
And then you're like playing against it, like, oh man, I got like a 5/5 that
God,
makes
they're
two
so
twos every
good.
turn on
This
turn
is
like three
yeah.
is so dumb.
Yeah.
This
Do you
deck's
play it and you're like,
stupid.
wow, this deck does nothing except for I just keep sleight of handing into like more cards that do the same thing. This is so dumb.
I'm gonna call
Um,
it right now. This deck is winning worlds.
wow.
Oculus. It's my pick. This deck's gonna be the champion.
I could totally see that too, which is really annoying. But
This deck's really good.
I
I'm
know.
not surprised at all to see it on here.
Hmm.
I'm a little surprised to see it third. I thought it might be like second most played. I thought there'd
I
be
thought
some popular deck and then this.
I thought this was gonna be much higher, yeah. So I'm also surprised. Domain Ramp has also been sticking around 11.5% as well. All the normal stuff, except for this
Yeah.
time, you don't have to play all the colors. You just have the Overlord of the Haunt Woods and just makes all the colors for you.
Yeah, it's the same deck, but like instead of the stupid dinosaur plant that they had
Hmm.
before, they just like have a much better version.
Yeah, it's like, oh hey, you don't want to play that dinosaur plant because you can't anymore because it's not in standard. Well, here's a much better one.
Yeah, better in every way.
Yeah. So, uh, good job. You took the red out of that domain deck, and
Yeah,
you still have domain fully. It's annoying.
yeah.
Um, Another deck I hate. We have Teamer Prowess, which is 8% of the metagame. This is actually the one I'm most excited to see what is going on with this deck because don't super know. The two cards
Some
we
sort of like otter combo thing, right?
I'm not super sure. So we had speculated about this in the Discord, but the two cards we know about this deck is Valley Floodcaller and Enduring Vitality. Now, the combo I had talked about in the past was Enduring Vitality and the Storm Splitter. However, I don't think that that's actually in this deck. I think they're just using the Valley Floodcaller to untap their creatures when they cast spells, so they keep untapping and tapping and untapping and tapping. I don't know if the Storm Splitter is in this deck. So it is an otter though. So I don't know what this deck is. I haven't seen it. It seems to be kind of a secret. I think Sanctum of All. We got some hot
There's some
goss,
insider info, yeah.
insider info in our Discord about this. Thank you, Edrico, for telling us about the friend of yours from your LGS who was talking about it. But um, anyways, this is the one I'm most excited to see what's going on. Like, what is
This
this deck?
sounds like to me broadly. Obviously, I don't know a ton about what's going on, but to me broadly, it sounds like one of those innovations where there's some sort of combo or like pseudo combo deck that goes on, and then a team realizes that whatever is classically the win con or whatever is classically the thing is actually not necessary. You probably win the game just by doing the thing anyways.
Hmm.
And so you can actually make streamline the deck and make it a little better
By taking
by
out
not
the.
including that namesake card,
Hmm.
which is very counterintuitive, but is something that works out. It reminds me of like when Matt Nass replaced the win con in that artifact deck and just looped spell bombs instead of having some. I forget what the actual win con originally was. It was like Emrakul or something.
Oh, I
And
didn't
he's
realize
like,
there was a different win condition.
originally it was like an Emrakul that you would cheat out or something like that, right? And he was like, that just makes the deck less consistent. You can just do the loop thing and throw a spell bomb in there, and
In
it
their
made the
face
deck. That's what brought
for
the deck to a
KCI.
whole new level. Yeah,
Yuck. Yuck.
because
Oh,
I
wait.
think originally it was KCI makes a ton of mana and you cast Emrakul,
Mhm.
and it was you loop through your deck, find Emrakul, and cast Emrakul. Matt Nass was
Oh,
like, you just don't need to do that. You just
get rid
if you're
of.
looping through, you can do two damage at a time. And it seems like that kind of thing where it's like this
Mhm.
card kills them when you do this thing,
Mhm.
but doing the thing is enough. You don't need the card that only is good if you're doing the thing,
Yeah.
and you can make the deck
It's
better
like the
that way.
win more card, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Which can be really hard to spot in a combo deck, as it's like this is the card that is the combo, right?
mhm.
Like,
That's super true. I wouldn't even think about that.
and it's like the engine is what wins.
Hmm.
The kill card could be anything. It's
That's
kind of
true.
like that's the teaching of Matt Nass.
Yeah, it's also the teaching of like, yeah, if you're banning pieces, you have to ban the engine
Right.
or like a piece of the engine. You
Don't
can't.
ban Pyrite Spellbomb.
No, that's not the card that is.
That's not what matters.
They'll just find something else. That's so funny. Anyway,
Cool. And then there's a few other decks, Dimir Demons, which is like I think we've run into the Demons deck online. I guess they're splashing blue now.
hmm
Um, there's Golgari mid-range. There's Convoke decks. There's a Golgari ramp deck, which I think I've played against online, but and then others. So a lot
hmm
of the stuff you've seen or run into in the like arena ladder. But the top five, I think, was super healthy, super interesting.
yeah.
Like the difference between the top deck in the field and other is like 6%,
hmm
like share.
Yeah,
That's crazy. That never
it's
happens.
crazy.
This is a
I
really, really healthy
It
metagame.
is. I was really surprised to like. There's a bigger breakdown of like some of the other decks, but I was surprised to see there aren't more caretaker decks. Like I thought we were gonna see more like mono white caretaker kind of control decks. That is like one of the top decks you see in Arena, and it just so much lower. So I'm excited to see like why that is. Like what were the I want players to tell me what were the weak points that they had found with it, why they decided not to play it. There's one like person playing Azorius Caretaker, and I want to know what that deck looks like, why
Yeah.
they're playing it like that instead.
Now I
Or
kind of hope they take down the tournament.
I mean, that would be really exciting. It's always exciting with the other category top eights, and you're like,
Yeah.
whoa.
And
Especially
this is
when
kind of my point about Shota. Shota could be
mhm,
on any one of these lists or on one of the lists that only he brought. I'm like, that's
yeah,
cool.
and we have no idea uh, until tomorrow. Very exciting stuff. Anyway, Jeff, I think it's time
Yeah.
for last call. But good reminder as I'm in cocktaily brain that we had to actually talk about the metagame before we get to the end. We got a beer to rate this evening. So as always, we rate our beers on a scale from balanced to mythic, just like the tiers in Arena. However, everyone's in a different tier at different times. This is just a fun way to rate beers, so don't feel bad when we say that bronze beers are trash. They're horrible. You have to spit them out. You pour them on the ground. They're just disgusting.
Silver beers are just bad. Or boring, I suppose. Macro
Hmm.
brews or just micro brews that are trying to be macro brews.
Yeah. Gold beers are fine, but you wouldn't really drink them again.
Platinum is solid and you would drink it again.
Diamond beers are exceptional. You like them a lot, and you would show these to your friends.
Mythic, these are the best of the best. These are the Jean Emmanuel de Praz of the beer world.
Whoa. Alrighty. Where are we gonna put this guy, this deceptive creature, the Necron New England IPA?
Um, it was good. I don't really know that I understand anything about the name. Like, I felt like Deceptive Creature was supposed to be like you've had this before, but you haven't, maybe. Maybe I'm reading too much into the name and it's not supposed to mean
Interesting.
anything. Um, but it just kind of tastes like a New England IPA. Um, I will say that I don't know if I've ever had Nectaron hops. Like I'm not super familiar with it.
Hmm.
I feel like that is what I was tasting. So if it's meant to be an introduction to this Nectaron, like I
It.
wasn't necessarily identifying this as some sort of hops that I've tried before.
Hmm.
I wasn't like tasting the Citra a lot. I was just kind of
Yeah.
tasting
It
this.
feels like maybe like Citra was just like a blending note. It definitely didn't feel like it
Yeah.
was like a Citra
I
IPA.
don't know if I could pick if they didn't write Citra on the can, I wouldn't have been like, this is Citra. I don't know that I love Nectaron, having tried this and like that's the hops on Showcase, but I feel like
Yeah.
they did what they wanted to do, showcase the Nectaron hops.
I think
Uh,
there's a reason this was the limited release.
yeah.
I was excited to taste something that they don't have all the time, but I do think that Nectaron might not be exactly what I'm looking for.
Nectaron might be more like maybe blend with Nectaron and Citra's the star.
I think that is
Right.
probably the thing. Um, yeah, I didn't love it. I'm not
It
going to
was
go back
fine.
and pick this
Yeah.
thing up. Through that, it feels really weird to call this gold.
I was between gold and platinum for that same
Mhm.
reason. I'm like, I don't know if it's technically platinum because I probably won't buy this again, but I don't feel like it's gold either. Like it was good. There's nothing wrong with it.
But that's
Or
really what
well,
gold
was it
is, you
good?
know?
Yeah.
It
I
was
guess that's
like
true.
it
Yeah.
was like totally fine. I was kind of excited because it was a New England IPA. I like ones like this, but it didn't have some of the, it was juicy enough, but like I think it's honestly that hop that I'm just like,
I
you
feel
know
like I
what?
just don't love Nectaron.
I think that's literally what it is. Just add it to the list of like hops that I'm like, huh, that was interesting, but I'm never gonna pick something that says that now. Like if I see
Right.
an IPA that says next run hops, I'm like,
Ooh.
next to Ron, I guess.
Oh,
Uh,
but
whatever, that was terrible. But yeah,
as a dad, I approve.
I'm not really. Yeah, this is gold.
You're right.
Uh,
I was between them because it just didn't feel right to give it gold, and then I'm like, no, that's what gold is for,
it's
exactly for
for
beers
yeah.
like this. Yeah,
Yeah, where it's like, yeah, I'm gonna totally forget this ever existed, and I'm never
yeah.
gonna drink this again. So
Although you won't necessarily forget because anytime Nectaron shows up, you'll be like,
that is true. I'll be like, hey, I tried this one beer that was basically just Nectaron, didn't like it.
yeah. They
So
even
I'm
put Citra in, and I still didn't like
Yeah,
it.
honestly, the best thing about this is that Collective Arts told me that I don't want more of this. So thank you, Collective
Yeah,
Arts.
I learned something.
I
That's
learned
why I
something.
love these one hop beers
Oh
because it's
yeah.
like I actually get to try that hop and whether I like it or not, I get to learn more about that and be like,
Yeah.
that's what that flavor that I sometimes pick up is it's this.
Yeah, it
And
feels closer to like wine, right? Where in wines they're like, "Hey, this is the one grape. Taste
right,
this grape." Instead of being like,
yeah,
"Here's a red wine that's a blend of all these
yeah.
grapes we have on our
14
place."
grapes. Which ones are they?
You're like, "Cool, I don't know what
Yeah.
that's whatever."
Do you
Um,
know, or did you lose count? You're asking me
mhm.
so that I can
Yeah,
formulate
it's
which
a
grapes.
red wine. Look at it, it's red. Look at this. It's beer. It's IPA. It's cloudy. Yeah, it must
Yeah.
be New England, you know.
Yeah, in the brewing world, they call them smash, like single
Hmm.
malt and single hops, and I'm a big fan of those because then you
Oh,
just like
great.
know what the things are.
You just know what's happening. So awesome. Uh, Gold for this beer, but we're very happy. We're happy gold.
Yeah,
Um,
it was like a gold that we learned from, you know.
exactly.
It was the friends we made along the way.
Totally. Anyway, folks, it's time for closing time. So if you ever want to talk to us, you can find us at Arena Regulars on Twitter and Instagram.
You may also find us on Arena itself with the username Arena Regulars Podcast.
If you would like to talk to me personally, you can find me at Zulberg, that is Zulberg on Twitter and Instagram. But Jeff, where can they find you?
Best place is on our Discord channel where we will be chatting about all of the new previews for the new set and talking shit about the teams we picked for Worlds. I'm so excited. Please join us. The link for that is in the show notes.
Oh, Jeff loves to talk shit. I'm just so excited for what's going to happen tomorrow. Anyway, please leave us a comment. Go to Spotify, YouTube, all the places you can leave comments. Post some stuff there. We've loved talking back to you, just like interacting with all of our fans. So thanks so much.
That makes it sound like if they interact with us, we're gonna shut them
Hey,
down.
shut the fuck up. No, I mean, like, we only do that sometimes. But
Yeah,
anyway,
just like 90% of the time.
we really appreciate all the feedback. So please continue to give us some. This has been the Arena Regulars.
Reminding you that Azorius Oculus is winning Worlds. You heard it here first.
Good night.
That's fine.